I'm rooting for all workforce development. Ding, 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 we finally got it right. We're really breaking down a barrier. It's the eye opener. It's the aha moment. And I love the aha moment because I'm able to say, hey, I'm bringing in the whole task force. I'm bringing in workforce development. I'm bringing in everybody. We about to bombard you with all of the fabulousness that workforce development does.
Yeah. My name is Kimberly Meadows, and I am the Training Director here at the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals.
Alexis Franks, Director of Membership with NADA.
Anthony Featherstone, Executive Director for WorkSource Montgomery and Montgomery County, Maryland's local workforce board.
Kara O'Donnell Galvin, Mass Hire, Cape and Islands Workforce Board Executive Director.
Joy Jamerson, Program Manager at HCAP.
April Ziomi-Portillo, Workforce Development Board of Solano County, the Business Services Senior Manager.
All right, so as you all know, we are celebrating this year our 40 years of excellence here at the NADA Conference. So we are so excited about being in the workforce development community for the previous 40 years. But as you all know, in the last 40 years, it has been a lot of change in workforce development. It's been a lot of change within the last 5 years in workforce development. So that's one thing I love about our industry is that it's constantly changing. It gives us the opportunity to continue to be innovative. And so what I really want to talk about today is embracing change. So the topic of our roundtable discussion today is going to be embracing change in the workforce development community. So I'm gonna start off with my first question, and feel free to jump in however you like. So as we're thinking about embracing change and thinking about workforce development, what do you think are some of the most pressing challenges in workforce development right now, and why is change necessary to really think about and address those challenges?
You know, I think there are a lot of challenges in workforce development. You know, we're all from different states, different areas, but I think we all probably experience similar issues, similar opportunities for improvement. I think for us in Montgomery County, Maryland, it's all about system building. That's our first and foremost priority. When you have a county that has 10 plus chambers, 200 plus nonprofit workforce organizations, multiple economic development organizations, one of the largest public school systems and one of the largest post-secondary institutions or community colleges in the country, you know, that's a hodgepodge of service delivery providers in the workforce development space. And so we're sending job seekers here, there, and everywhere. We're, you know, walking in and out of the same doors when it comes to business services. And so, you know, I think the biggest challenge for us as a workforce system, as a workforce board, as a workforce area is how do we get all of these different players to sing from the same sheet of music when we you know, really realize that we're working with a mutual customer, and that's a Montgomery County business, a Montgomery County resident. And so how do we leverage resources, create synergies, you know, create integrated approaches so it's not so territorial and there's 6 people around this table, if I can do my math, and we're all working towards the same end. But, you know, how do we create a system where we can understand what we all do, what the challenges are, what our scopes are, and we can kind of come to the table and work together like we are right now to figure out what the common solution is. And I think that's the biggest challenge because technology is changing, the market is changing, COVID-19 has changed the world and the workforce. You know, no single entity can solve any workforce change, big problem by themselves, and so we have to do it together. So I think we need to build systems, and it's good because you know, we have some economic development folks that are starting to come to workforce conferences. We have nonprofit members starting to come to workforce conferences, and so you start to see more people from different lanes come to the table so that we can figure out how we do this together. So I think that's what I would have.
I think we don't know each other. Like you said, how can we get everyone to talk about, sing from the same sheet of music? Right. So that was what I discussed last year at the conference during my session. It's like, everyone is doing the same thing. How can we sing the same song and get along? My services may not be able to help this individual, but your services can. So how can we build one mutual system that once somebody comes through the doors, if we can't help them, we're not turning them away, we're immediately sending them to another entity that can help. And it's all about, you also have some people that's doing things just for clout, like for recognition, to say they did it. But you just have to have a passion, and everything is changing, from the time to the attire to our kids. Everything is just changing around us, and we all need to be on one accord to be able to provide a good service to the individuals that's taking the courage to walk through the doors of workforce development.
I agree. And in Massachusetts, we have workforce regions, and in those regions, we have all created our regional blueprint, and we're now all in the process of updating them. And part of that process is bringing together our workforce and economic partners, but as well as our educator partners. And it's really helped, just to your point, bring together all those partners together, collaborate. And so we have just finished 3.0 version. And so to everybody's point, the blueprint that we just finished this week is so much different than the blueprint that was initially launched in 2017. And some of this, overall the sectors have stayed the same, but the occupations have changed, and some of the partners have really changed. But what I can tell you over the last several years is the collaboration is a lot stronger. And I think that, to your point, is just wonderful. Like, we are all singing the same song now, and it's wonderful. And I know in our region where we are a little bit different, the Cape is a different entity, and we have a lot of different challenges. But to make sure that the partners are all at the table doing the work is I think what's going to help us get to our end goal together.
One of the things that we've been doing a lot in Northern California is been really trying to pay attention to the businesses itself, and being that I'm a very small county that has a lot of small business, we really are trying to get the employer's voice in the mix with it, because they're the ones employing the folks, they're the ones creating the jobs for the folks, and really trying to kind of find out what are those challenges and how can we be that liaison, that workforce liaison in between, so we can get our economic departments there as well as the educators there to create those certificates or educations or skills for the public to actually get the jobs that they need to afford I would call home buying wages, essentially. Right. So I tend to like to kind of focus on the voice of the business, and really getting them involved in what that is, because it can be just a simple certification. It doesn't have to be this big planning session. It sometimes just starts with just this one little conversation. It can turn into a giant resource.
That's such a critical piece, getting those employers to the table, having that fluid conversation. I know when we've done different grant opportunities, having those employer forums has really led us to some great information when we apply for those grants, really valuable information.
I think also doing that too, when you bring them to the table, it now allows you to think outside the box in your typical WIOA box that we're in, and you're like, I do have the resources, I can do this, but we just have to create a pathway for that. So I think definitely business.
And they're such a critical, the businesses are such a critical partner. It's really promoting that collaboration, that partnership that also we all need on our boards, right? And so if we don't reach out to those businesses and make them feel like valued partners, we're only hurting ourselves in the long run. And so we need those businesses. So that's a really, I think, excellent point that you just brought to the table.
That's what, when policy change around like employment, they need employers at the table. The federal government is the federal government. State government is state government. They can't tell an employer what they need. The employer needs to tell the federal government and state government what they need. So that's when you say bringing them to the table, bring industry to the table so they can let you know this is what we're needing. And this is how I think a lot of programs that's being sent down the pipeline are being successful, because finally someone said we need employers at the table. We need educational providers at the table to help us fix this crisis that we're in.
And Joy, I love that you brought that up too, because as we reflect over 40 years, we're also talking about 40 years of change in legislation. And that is another piece to what we're talking about and understanding the need for change. So how do you think change is necessary in addressing how our work will change when legislation with reauthorization comes about as well?
You like you said, we need to talk to the people in the community. And who's in the community? Workforce development, economic development, employers, educational providers. So we need to have everyone's voice heard. One thing about the union that I love is they focus on worker voice. And they can't move forward without hearing what that worker actually needs to be successful. So in order for us to move as an organization or as move forward with the United States, we need to have the employers, we need to have workforce development, we need to have economic development. We need all of those key stakeholders at the table, and not our senators or governors at the tables behind closed doors making rules. No, we need these individuals behind those closed doors as well to let you know what they're actually needing in the community.
Excellent point.
And I think one of the things that we are trying to do with NAWDP, and Alexis is now our new director of membership, is really to diversify our membership. So as we're talking about, everybody has the same end goal, we bring economic development, come to our conference, connect. So our 3 pillars are connect, advance, innovate. So we want to have the opportunity to connect all these different partners together so that as we're, going back and facing these challenges, we have somebody else we can lean on. I met this person at the conference. They're doing this in Northern California or in Massachusetts. So really diversifying our membership within NAWDP as well to try to address some of those challenges.
Because you never know what they may be doing. I can scale it down so it can work in my community. So what works in Northern California can't work in Montgomery County or on Cape, but I can take what you're doing and scale it, change it so it can fit into my community. So bringing all of those entities, diversifying NAWDP and diversifying employers, it brings that system of change. And change is good. That's what a lot of people are afraid of change. And I think the people that's afraid of change is because one, they're thinking they're going to lose their job, they're going to miss out on something, but all change is not bad. This change is going to be good for all of us.
And I think one thing that's happening in Maryland across the state is that there's a new piece of legislation called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Everybody has a blueprint, right? And so it really overhauls our public education system, but there's a small piece of the legislation, Pillar 3, Section 4, Task 1, that tells you how small it is. But what it says is that the workforce boards in Maryland are now tasked with going into the schools to provide career coaching to 6th through 9th graders, 6th through 12th graders. And so that's a bit of mission creep, right? In a good way. We've never been able to go into the schools, have this level of access to young folks and the career pathways offered in our K through 12 public education system as we do now. And so I think, as we talk about, I think you always got to be mindful of how many tables there are, because I think that's another issue in the workforce. There are just 1 million tables that we're asking employers to come to, but in Maryland now we're bringing young folks to the table. So
I think that's a great point. I think that's a really great point. When we talk about what is changing, I think we look at the innovative and the career pathways, and in Massachusetts and in other states, innovation and education is so important. But you're right, it's not just the 9th through 12th grade anymore. It is into the middle schools, and middle school is now 6th grade, and really promoting those career pathways is so important. And back to that blueprint, it's really connecting those career pathways to our in-demand occupations, and making sure that kids get that career pathway occupations education at younger and younger ages is so important, and glad to see that other states are also embracing that. It's wonderful.
I've been preaching that.
Right? I think we've all been preaching that, so
To go into the high schools. Like, I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and 2-parent home. So my family and my mom and dad was like, always go to school, get a college degree. Never once did I know all of these other additional occupations until I got into workforce. I didn't know workforce development existed. I didn't know any of this existed until I actually fell into it. So when I get a chance to go and talk to high school students, everyone, and I hate when they say everyone is not college bound, everyone is college bound, but not at the time that y'all want them to be college bound, right? So they're college ready, but they can't afford college, or they can't go to college right now because they may have a mini family themselves. So what are other opportunities we can bring to these high school and middle schoolers? And this is a domino effect. If we bring it to the high schools can bring it to the parents. So we're not just helping this student, we're also helping an entire family get out of poverty and get sustainable income. So when I hear school districts don't want workforce development coming into the schools because they're all college, we need to take a step back and say, what disservice are we providing to our students, to our babies who are coming out? Because it's no more just teacher, preacher, nurse, doctor, lawyer. We have surgical technicians, sterile processing. We have all kind of different occupations that all of these kids can tap into. So I applaud Maryland for putting that in legislation, because this is needed. Workforce development needs to have an office on these high school and middle school campuses so they can help our families, because they are our future.
Well, I think you said something too that was important. Not everybody is able to go to college right away. So let's embrace those students that maybe are entering career pathways that don't need a college education right away. Construction, or in our case, like offshore wind, these are career pathways that are going to ultimately end up with strong competitive wages, and students and families should not feel that their student is doing anything less than. We should be celebrating those students just as much as we celebrate those students that are going on to a community college or a four-year college. And we see, our vocational schools. We're fortunate in my region on Cape Cod to have two really wonderful vocational schools that do support their students that are going right into the workforce. But we need to do more of that, with every comprehensive high school, because every student chooses a different path. And I think, that we need to make sure that all students are feeling valued, whatever their decision is at the age of 18.
And I like that value word. So when I was in New Orleans, I was over a federal funded grant called Educational Talent Search. It's part of TRIO, Upward Bound. So dealt with 6th through 12th grade students from represented populations. So in New Orleans, all of the school systems are probably about 95% African Americans. So across the country, everyone knows when it's National Signing Day, because all of the football players, basketball players, if you can hit, kick, swing, or anything with a ball, you're having this. ESPN, CNN, everyone wants to focus on this person. So I took that same concept and said, we need to celebrate our kids in this program if they're going to a four-year institution, because they had to work their little tickets off to get these grades to get into that institution and get the ACT. We need to even celebrate the ones that's going into workforce development. So we had a big signing day, and we celebrated our kids either going to a 2-year, 4-year, going into the workforce, going into the military, or even just taking that gap year and saying, Ms. Joy, I'm not gonna do nothing. So we had to celebrate them, because if we don't, they're not probably getting that support at home. So why not support our kids with what we have, like our passion to support these kids? So the value of that, what brought that to the table was just like the kids' faces. They were like, thank you. Like a small thank you goes a long way. And it's just like, we're celebrating you, because one day you're gonna have to take care of me. And I want you to remember, remember what Ms. Joy did for you back in.
I'm sorry. No, I think you addressed the elephant in the room. Like, why is becoming a plumber, getting into an apprenticeship, to become a glazer, or getting into a healthcare apprenticeship, an alternative?
It should
kind of a last ditch. I mean, that's what it's. You looked at it as kind of less than, and I think that paradigm is changing. But that you addressed it, and I think that's how we change the paradigm. Is we celebrate, we market it. Yes, because there are pathways, and quite frankly. My neighbor is a master trades person, and they have less debt and probably way more money than I do, right? But these are not our alternatives, because you couldn't cut it in this area.
Yes.
So,
and I think too, you said something that was important about students that are going into the community college in our state, and I'm sure like many of yours, In Massachusetts, if you go to a community college, you can transfer and into any state school, and it saves thousands of dollars. Like, how wonderful is that? But I think, again, to your point, students feel less than, right? And so, and that is something that we do need to dispel, because our community, and I'm sure like all of us, we have community colleges that are wonderful, and they offer great programming, not just associate's degree, but certificate programs. And to the point that was made earlier today, they all need to be at our tables, right? And so they need to be at these conferences. We can't do all of our work without them at the table. And so if we're going to promote them as partners, then it only seems fitting that we promote the students to attend our partner institutions.
I was just going to bring up, it was kind of interesting, there was a program that they do with us where they do a lot of job shadowing with certain age groups and stuff, starting with middle and then obviously through high school. But I had the opportunity to be on this and kind of help, foster trying to find businesses. And one of the biggest things that I realized was, I think it's super important for us to make sure too that even the educational folks are bringing the right teachers in to train people. It was really eye-opening for me to realize that even the educational system, sorry I'm bringing it up again, but businesses again need to talk to the business community about what their needs are, and that the educational system really focuses on that, because that's something I've been seeing a lack in my area on, and it's been kind of my mission, I guess I could say, is just like, hey, education, you need to say, here's these areas that are popping up that you don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree or something to go to, and you can get educated, but we need to get them to understand what that is and what that looks like, because it isn't just the building they see, and a lot of times when you talk to young folks, they're like, oh, well, you got to be a scientist and you got to do this. Well, really, there's all these jobs in there that you don't even need a bachelor's degree. You can actually do this. And it's, but you love to put things together and you can be doing this with, I just think that exposure of that and hiring the right teachers, and I know that we are catalysts to that, to make sure that happens for that. So that's why I was putting my 2 cents into it, because I was like, wait, the businesses again, the businesses. They really.
I think that's really important, and I took over as executive director at our board 6 months before COVID hit, so it was just like yikes, right? But there were a lot of. This is going to sound like a really strange comment. There was a lot of silver linings that came out of COVID in our region, and some of it was different career pathway education, some of it was different grants that we applied for, staff that we were able to hire, and I think one of the things that we have in our region is we've always had a strong relationship with our academic partners, and so I think we were able to really build on that. And I think one of the things that, again, just going back to what I said earlier, just being a state that we really look to innovation and education, we created a motto, creating our future workforce. So we really, to your point, again, looking at that, middle school to high school to 12th grader, where are those career pathways? What are those important sectors? Whether it's the creative economy, that I'm actually going to talk about this later this week at one of our workshops, but also pathways that young adults can enter that may not, mean you have to go to four-year college. And so, I think that's been really helpful and really scratching that surface. What does that mean? And our schools have been really responsive, not just the vocational schools. Some of our high schools actually have applied for grants through the innovation pathway in Massachusetts and have ambulances in the schools. So students can learn how to be a CNA or a home health aide, while they're in high school and on actual, within that, realm. And it's pretty cool. And, they're doing the work. And I think getting those skills still while they're in high school and
absolutely,
and deciding whether or not they want to do that work. I mean, full disclosure, I started out in college as a nurse and changed my major. So
students in shadowing, and they go on a police ride and they're arresting somebody and they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't think I want to do this anymore, because one person's cussing them out.
How many times we have students say, I think I failed fail my internship because I don't want to be a vet tech or a nurse. No, you didn't. You just saved your parents thousands or yourself thousands and thousands of dollars. So I think, you had said earlier, career pathway education is so much different than it was, to your point, years ago, even 5 or 6 years ago. It's changed. And I think it's our job as EDs to really be the catalyst of that, to be that connector, to talk to our businesses and our educators to find out what is that next step.
And it's also really good just to hear the initiatives that you have going on locally or within your roles, because it really lends to how you are using your programs to adapt to change. So that was going to be my next question. How can your workforce programs or any workforce development program adapt to increasing demand for skills in emerging industries and technologies?
Well, I would say, since I'm the only one here that's not an ED. But I've seen a lot of change over the course of maybe 10 years, right? So about 5 years ago, all the boards, I was over the Central Region for Ed2Go's programs. So they were like, industry-based credentials. We need to get industry-based credentials. IBCs, get the credentials to the community. In the community, they were getting training, but still wasn't getting the jobs. We're gonna fast forward to 2021, I think, or 2022, when I came to HCAP and heard about registered apprenticeships. Now, I will be the first to say I didn't even know what registered apprenticeships were. I didn't know unions still existed. So I tell people I was in a registered apprenticeship program because I had to learn my job. I had to learn this. I had to educate myself. They provided training to me to learn the system. I already knew workforce development. I knew higher ed. I didn't know registered apprenticeships. And when I learned about registered apprenticeships, I was like, ding, 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 we finally got it right. We're really breaking down a barrier. We're breaking down really 2 barriers with registered apprenticeships. We're taking that barrier of I can't go to school because I gotta go to work and I need to feed my family, and I can't quit my job and go to school because I need to do this. We're taking those 2 things, didactic training and on-the-job training, and making it this program. And I think it's been successful because, one, businesses are starting to get it. In healthcare specifically, it took a little while before we started growing, but now we've seen sufficient growth in the healthcare industry because people, like healthcare employers, are really starting to understand the model. And it's just, this program here, I'm not gonna say it's the end all be all, but it is the gold standard or the platinum standard of getting our younger adults and even our adults into a career that, one, they're getting an education and they're getting sustainable employment with wages, and they can be able to feed their families, afford the homes that they're wanting to buy, get cars, and get off of the system. Not being able to say, okay, when I go into one of your offices, I don't need your services no more because you helped me get this well-paying job, and now I can move forward with my life. So it's just like, it's programs like registered apprenticeships that's going to help fix our workforce system.
For me, with this piece, I think has been really successful for us is just, again, I'm sorry I'm talking about business voice again, but I'm one of them. I'm one of them. You're the business. I'm the business. You can tell. But the reason I say that is because we've really focused on actually doing consultations. So my staff goes in and consults business. I don't go in there with my bag of stuff. I don't offer things. It's what do you need? And what has come out of that has been opportunities to make those changes, because now we're really figuring out these industries, these potholes, I guess you could say, of things that are missing. And then we can now focus. Now we have an opportunity to focus our resources on that to actually make that change. And then we can pop in all of our partnerships and entities in there to make that work. As I have seen it, like for our bioeconomy has been one of them. We've been talking to several different businesses, some large ones, small ones, startups, and we're finding these areas that they are missing, and they are non-degreed opportunities, and they're home buying wages. So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, we wouldn't even known that unless we've had that conversation with that business. So for me, it's been a lot about just really focusing in on the need on the business and allowing them tell us that piece.
So I think it's important that you keep bringing up the business piece, because it is really important. In Massachusetts, we have several programs where we link to our businesses, whether it's through our vocational schools, but really trying to ensure that when our students graduate, they have that competitive edge, right? And so whether they go off to college or they're going to enter that workforce, they have been exposed to those career pathways. But we also have programs like the Career and Technical Initiative that is for older, 18 and older. So folks that maybe decided not to go on to college, or maybe an adult learner, but they can access the vocational schools. And again, we have two. So they could do something in plumbing or construction, carpentry, and they can use the vocational schools. And it's wonderful because, again, they're having that connectivity to the employer. And so, we have one of our superintendents at one of the vocational schools said to me, if I could keep the lights on 5 or 7 days a week, I would, because they're such assets to our community, right? And so I think, again, providing these career pathway educational opportunities is really helping to eliminate the skills gaps for future. What we're doing for present is meeting with those employers. And we recently received a large healthcare grant, but it was, in response to continually meeting with our healthcare providers. We had created a healthcare consortium to address the ongoing needs. And, they have changed quite a bit in 5 years, and a little twist and turn. And, listening to what the needs of the employers were, and applying for this grant, and we might not have been able to address all of the needs, but then letting them know, but this is how we're going to address what we haven't already done, and really making sure that our employers knew that they were an active participant in this process. And I think that's really what it comes down to.
I'm glad you mentioned the healthcare grants you got, so I don't reroute this conversation too much. But no, because we can't do anything without money.
That's right.
Right? Nobody would be around this table if there wasn't a grant or a funding source to get you here. So I think for us to be able to affect change, we have to look outside of WEO. WEO provides tremendous benefit in all of our communities. And I can't speak for your communities, but the communities that we serve, there's some gaps, right? And things that we can't do or, can't meet the needs of for our community with WEOA. So it's all about those additional bolt-on funding sources, whether it's philanthropic foundational money, whether it's, painting the picture of a need to our local government to allow us to put local solutions on the ground for their constituents. It's all about, for us, diversifying the money that's coming in. So really there's nothing that we can't do. And I'm not saying that's our situation right now, but that's what we're building towards. If there's a solution, there's nothing that we can't fund to help somebody. But it all starts with money. And so we're looking outside of just the norm.
Someone asks you, what is the need? Everyone has a different need, right? And if they walk through your doors, they may not be eligible for the services because they missed out on this one particular whatever they needed, right? And I think it's a disservice to that individual because the government set those needs up in place, and you guys got to follow the rules. We all have to follow rules. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be rules. There need to be rules, but we need to actually revisit those eligibility requirements, because it's just like sometimes we can't provide a service to someone because they didn't have A, B, or C. And we have to turn them away. But then, like you're saying, having those other buckets of funds that if WEOA can't fix this problem, well, we have this other bucket of funding that will be able to fix these problems. So when I was working at a nonprofit organization, and we did a simulation because we went to the board and said, we need more money. And they were like, we give you money. No, we're gonna do this simulation. So 5 board members quit. Because one, we gave them, this is your salary, this is what you get every 2 weeks. They couldn't handle the pressure of a simulation. What makes you think, now you're thinking, this is everyday's life, somebody's life when they're walking through the doors. And this is only the money that you're giving us. So this is why we're needing more funding.
So as an executive director, the things that keep me awake at night is everything that you just said, you know, making sure that that we can be, you know, that we can grow our funding, that we can help more and more people, that, you know, I can ensure that my staff, that they can be increased, that we provide competitive wages so that, you know, I can attract talented folks to the board, right? And so all of these things, but we can't do these things, I can't do all of these things, you know, without, I have to be creative, right? Yes, and so, and I think we want to be a place where people want to come to work. Yes. And so I think that, you know, you're right. You know, the healthcare grant was the largest grant that we ever received at the board, and we were so proud of that. And so, but it's going to take more than just that grant. It takes, you know, but again, writing a good grant like that takes a lot of time, right? And so, but those are the things you have to find the time to do, and you know, you want to, you know. I think the most stressful part of my job is making sure that as a region, nobody ever gets turned away, but that we also are ensuring that we're continuing to grow and attracting strong talent.
Yeah. That is definitely something that's constantly WEO is declining, and so we're always trying to find ways of funding things. And I know we received an ARPA funding through our county, and so that has been a great benefit to actually supply help for people that we may not have done because of, you know, not necessarily qualifying. But the other thing I tend to do a lot is because I'm a nonprofit, I actually utilize a lot for donations. And if I have a project I'm on, I'm going after folks. I'm hitting up banks, I'm hitting up, you know, folks to help support. A lot of casinos around us and things will support some of the events and things that we're trying to provide for that. So it is really about being creative. I mean, it comes from a casino sometimes, you know, but they're present there, right? You're just like, well, heck, if you're going to give me 5,000, hey, this is great. I'll take it, you know? So it's really being very creative.
And I think that's some really important points that we've made here. And I think one is that as customers are coming in, they don't care where the funding comes from. They don't care if it's WEO or where. And I think it's incumbent upon us as workforce development professionals to ensure that we're doing everything we can to serve our customers regardless of the funding stream. So, you know, reaching out, and I think that's a part of embracing change, reaching out to our partners as we're developing those partnerships. We have all those people at the table, reaching out to those people to get additional types of funding. So that was a great point you brought up. So thank you for bringing that up, Anthony. Anybody else want to add on to that? And then I think we have maybe one closing question.
I would say to your point, when you're talking to businesses and when I go into talking to employers, it's like their need. And they're needing funding too. They're like, we can't, you want us to do what now, Joy? It's just like, I want you to save the world like I'm saving it. But it's just like, they're like, how are we paying for this? How is this going to get done? And like I said, introducing them to workforce development. You guys, the joy that I get when I tell an employer, do you know about workforce development? And they're like, upstairs in human resources? No, outside across the street. That's the workforce development I'm talking about. They don't know that workforce development exists. Like high schools and middle schools and other entities don't know that workforce development exists. So I get the privilege of being able to sing that same song that y'all singing, even though like y'all are in your different regions. I'm rooting for all workforce development because I'm just like, okay, I'm on this center stage. They're gonna know about workforce development, and it's not upstairs in your human resources. Like I'm like, hey employer, you got workforce development office right across the street. That's a pipeline of people that they can send to you. That's funding that they can help pay for training and books and supplies and all of this other great stuff. So it's just like, it's the eye opener. It's the aha moment. And I love the aha moment because I'm able to say, hey, I got somebody I want to introduce you to. So when I'm going to the employer, yes, I'm by myself at first, but that second initial conversation, I'm bringing in a whole task force. I'm bringing in workforce development. I'm bringing in everybody. We about to bombard you with all of the fabulousness that workforce development does.
It's so amazing to see that when you consult a business and you walk in and we will do proposals actually after we say here's some solutions, but it is amazing to see when you're like, hey, here's these solutions that we can do to solve this. They're more, now they're going to see that return on investment.
Yep.
And right, they're totally going to see that at that point, and now they're going to say, hey, can we do these things? We've done some really unique things. Recently, we had a acupuncturist in our area. Now, we do incumbent worker, right? Everybody knows what it is, and him himself, who is the owner of the business, wanted to do this. Well, most areas will tell you no, because you can't because you're the business owner. Well, we wouldn't accept the no. We actually took it up to Department of Labor and found out that we could fund him because he was a W-2 employee of his business. So you absolutely could do that. So we wouldn't have done that and solved his issue unless we sat down and discussed that and really dove in there and asked our state advisor to take it up to DOL to have those conversations. So although it may seem like I call it the coalition of willing sometimes, but you do find these monumental moments that change the landscape entirely of how you do business to people and in our communities.
Because at the end of the day, what we're doing, we're changing people's lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that happens like through collaboration, right? Through collaboration, through connectivity.
Mm-hmm. And as you said that, so I love workforce development, as you can probably tell from my passion. Like, I love it. And sometimes when I think back through my career journey, my career pathway, I kind of, don't know how, well, I do know how I ended up here, but it wasn't anything that I thought about growing up. I didn't think I wanted to be a workforce development professional because I didn't know what it was. Sure. So one thing I think that we also want to do with NAWDP is to really make it a career that people think about before you fall into the career, right? Mm-hmm. So whether it's, in high school or, within college or after they graduate from college, to really know that workforce development is an industry and what we do as workforce development professionals. So, I love the passion around the table. So you all give me energy to, get started on the next 40 years of workforce development. So maybe in 40 more years, we'll be doing 80. We'll be doing, this is our 80th conference. Welcome back.
Bring us all to the table.
Right.
I love that you say that because I think all of us can agree we all talk career pathways, but we don't talk career pathways in our own sector. Mm-hmm. So I think kudos to you for saying that. And we do need to talk more about what we all do and to bring more career awareness. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. It was 18 years in July, and I've had a great career. I've worked in, 3 different workforce areas in Massachusetts. I've worked for a funder. I've had a lot of different opportunity. But again, to your point, people don't realize that you can have this trajectory of a career, and we need to bring more awareness to that. And even changing, I'd love to go to Maryland and work.
Let my daddy tell you.
We'll talk off camera.
Let my dad tell you, I work for President Biden. I said, Daddy, stop telling people I work for the President of the United States. I do not. But I wake up every day knowing that the work that I'm doing is changing the lives of the people in the community. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. I can be in Maryland, in Massachusetts, in California, in Texas, in Louisiana. When I step foot in front of whoever I'm speaking to, it never seems to amaze me when people come up to me and say thank you, because you're providing the resources and you're providing the information that we needed to help others. So it's just like I said before, we're saving lives, we're changing lives, and we're building up families. We're really building up. It just doesn't stop at that 6th grader or that 12th grader. It leaks into it. I had my mom, I had my dad, I had my family support, and right now the families don't have that type of support. So what support can we provide to those individuals? And if we help one, then we can help everyone.
I think it's just absolutely an amazing opportunity to be a part of being in workforce, just to see the breadth of what everybody does and where you can find your niche. Although, as you can tell, mine has been the business side, obviously. but I will say,
I started.
Right. I mean, obviously, but I think one of the most exciting things for me in memories, if I just think of anything, is just watching a business like a sole prop actually growing to a micro, then to a small, and hiring their first people, opening their buildings, growing, expanding, getting contracts. It's probably the most wonderfulest thing to see, because now what they're doing is they're sustaining more jobs in our own counties or neighborhoods for people to have jobs for, and I just think that's an absolute amazing feeling to be a part of.
Absolutely. And so I think I'll just close us out by saying, first of all, thank you all for joining me and Alexis on this roundtable. And as we're talking about embracing change, I think we closed it perfectly, is that even though we're embracing change, the one thing that doesn't change is the impact that workforce development has on lives. So again, thank you all, and I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.